Hey everyone. Today we will be looking at building a resilient front end application using a JavaScript framework. And to do this, we're going to be following some of the rules and recommendations from the GOVUK service manual. The GOVUK team have done a lot of research and have worked with a lot of accessibility experts to come up with these recommendations, and I think that we should follow these, and we could still use modern frameworks like React, Vue.js, and all these other new ones that are coming out, Remix and everything, without compromising on accessibility, and also making it more inclusive for all your users, and also more performant as well. So today we're going to be looking at this bit of the spec where we look where it talks about server-side rendering. It's quite important that we talk about this because I myself sat in a lot of panels where a lot of JavaScript frameworks were being used, and as soon as you turn off JavaScript, it just stops working, and it's a pain for users. One of the things that GovUK does, GovUK service manual really iterates, is that we shouldn't assume that users turn off JavaScript and CSS, purely because most users don't actually turn off JavaScript and CSS. Like most of our web is built on using JavaScript, and without CSS you're not seeing any styling. But what happens is they might have temporary network issues. So you might be on a 3G connection, or your internet suddenly drops, or partway through while assets are being loaded up, especially when you have a large application and the performance and the optimization minification of those assets haven't been done properly. Those assets take a while to load, and what happens is, if the JavaScript doesn't scripts don't load in time, the user sees the HTML, but they won't see any sort of interactive elements, and it just breaks at that point. So what I'll do, I'll go through what it's like to build a normal JavaScript application without taking any of this into consideration, and then I'll show you how to actually build these things properly, so that even if someone doesn't have JavaScript enabled, you can still use it. So for this demo, what we'll do, we'll use React. I'll have a look. Yeah, we'll use React to demonstrate a small application that we're gonna build, maybe like a postcode lookup or something like that. Okay, cool. So like a search here. So if you type in documentary, this search thing. So, but if, for example, I was to turn off my JavaScript here, and to do this, I believe the best way would probably be getting a plugin, but I'm running on guest mode, so I believe we can just go into here and scroll down, disable JavaScript. So I've now disabled JavaScript. I'll come here and see here, nothing works. Well, the page renders, but the page doesn't actually work. So it's a bit annoying for users, because clearly you can see here that there's nothing really telling you that you can't search here. The ideal thing would be to use progressive enhancement and to actually remove the search field, so that if JavaScript isn't enabled, it doesn't show up. So I'll show you an example of how GovUK do this. So they don't use a framework, but they do use progressive enhancement. So like, let's say benefits. So we search for benefits, and if you, like, for example, select for services, you see JavaScript is reloading this section of the page, and it's updating the page without navigating the user away. But if I was to turn off JavaScript, so if I disable JavaScript now, you'll see that you now have this filter button. So when I'm ticking, it's not actually doing anything. So if I click filter, it does a refresh and it reloads everything. This is one of the ways that they've managed to keep search functionality without actually any sort of JavaScript requirement. So if I disable enable JavaScript again, you see like the button disappears and the JavaScript functionality returns. So we go back here. JavaScript is back. So if I refresh this page, I go back to this section, type in documentary, and suddenly it starts working again. So what we'll do is I'll show you how to build this, but in a different way, where you're thinking of actually how this could actually work without JavaScript enabled. And this is actually quite a good example, this one, because the page actually loads. Most examples don't actually load. So if we go here, start a new React app. So if we use so this is recommending, okay, cool. So this is recommending Next.js as the framework to use. If we don't have Next.js and we use just a normal maybe create React app, I think this is no longer supported by the React team, but this is purely front end. So this will demonstrate what it's like for users when JavaScript doesn't load up. So so if I start a thing, so to make a directory, so make a directory called YouTube tutorials. Go to YouTube tutorials, and then I do px React JS only demo. So this will create a React app using the create React app package, and it will install everything and build us a little small application so we can actually see what's going on with everything. So I will let that load. It might take a few minutes depending. So the create React project, React app project, actually was originally I believe built by the React core team. Probably wrong about that, but I think it was one of the first ones that was created to make building React applications a bit more structured, and like there's some sort of like folder structure in place, and it was just so easy to get started. But over time, what's happened is there's loads of new frameworks that have come about, such as Next.js, Remix, Gatsby, and Expo for like native apps. But these frameworks have become more productionized, so you can actually use it in production. So let me see where we're at. Okay, cool. So it's we're installing everything. Give it a second. Should be there. Yeah, great. So now I need to upgrade my thing. So now we're at React. Okay, so if I open up VS Code, here. So you see here that we have a small app that just says edit this page to thing and so on, and this is quite nice because it could npm run dev it's npm start, and it loads up our app, and it has simple page loading up. So if we edit here, YouTube tutorial, it should automatically update. So it's fast, hot reloading, all of the nice stuff that developers choose React for, because of all of these nice features. Like, it's so nice to not have to wait for a compiler to compile your whole piece of code. As soon as you save, it's there, it's ready to go. So I'll show you what happens where, because it's a purely front-end application, show you what happens when and it's all JavaScript based. There's no like compiling to HTML or static site. If I turn off JavaScript, this is what you would see, and this is what was showing up for a lot of these government services that were being built in the last couple of years. I'm sure they've now improved their practices to include like server-side rendering, but what would happen is a government agency would be, especially during COVID, they would need a service built very fast, and so they'll go out and get like a company that can build that for them. And now this company wants to use React, which is fine, right? But what they don't take into consideration is all of these accessibility requirements, where if JavaScript is turned off, or JavaScript somehow doesn't load up for some reason, the whole service wouldn't work. And then what would happen is they'll go through the service assessment, and they would get flagged up on that issue, and then they might end up building a separate service that is server-side rendered. It just didn't make sense at all. And the other thing is, like, React is also a progressive enhancement onto your existing thing. So I believe one of their recommendation is actually to use it as a progressive, like starting off as a progressive enhancement, and not just using it as a completely full-on application. And I think they just started that off. So for example here, like they're showing how to add buttons. I think the documentation has changed since then, but so the original recommendation from the team was to actually add it as a progressive enhancement. But obviously the world has changed now. People are moving to JavaScript based frameworks, and people are actually liking developing in these frameworks. So I believe that recommendation is probably outdated now. So this is a clear example of like what happens when you just turn off JavaScript and then the user can't do anything. So what you can do is use a framework like Next.js, which can actually provide you with all the server-side rendered stuff. So I'll show you an example. So if we create the same, so I'll exit this, then so shall I use TypeScript? Yeah, it doesn't really matter. But I won't use the sources. I won't use any of the experimental stuff. I'll keep the alias as is. So with Next.js, it's one of the benefits of Next.js is that it's a full React application that has server-side rendering, everything, and also server-side serverless APIs built into the actual platform, and it has built-in optimization, data fetching, everything you really need to build a full, like, proper application is built using built into the framework. So what I'll do is I'll see where we're at with this. Okay, so if we go into the application, open it up, you'll see if I run this npm run dev, so this is now running, and this page is exactly like the page that we saw in the Create React app. There's no different, like, if you're a React developer, there's no difference really. And if you've messed around with React, there's literally no difference. There's some like Next.js specific stuff, and like this video isn't for that, but for example like head and stuff, so we can go through all of that stuff in another video, but this video is to demonstrate like how server-side rendering works. With server-side rendering, if I now turn off JavaScript, cool. It's probably not a good example. Let me build it. So if we run build, so this will build a thing. So yeah, one thing to note here is when you're working locally, a lot of this stuff might be turned off. So when you build a serverless static site, you get all of these files, and these files basically just render the whole application without the need of JavaScript. Sorry, let me just go for it. Okay, cool. So I think I need to sorry about that. So now that I've built the application, I could just run npm start, which is different to npm dev run dev, because we built the project and now we can start it. So if we start it, it's now loaded on the same port, but now when I disable JavaScript, it should just load. Whereas when I run the same thing, but if I run it on npm run dev, because with the dev it has hot reloading and all this other stuff, if I disable JavaScript, it'll lose a lot of the stuff that we actually basically need. So this is how you can build a resilient front end that works with JavaScript and without JavaScript, and it just makes everything quicker. So if it's pre-rendered, if it's already built as a static application, so or a server-side rendered, as soon as the server response comes back, it's coming back as HTML. It's not coming back as a body tag or like a little bit of HTML, then like it's building the page on the fly. It's already built. You already have everything you need to run the whole application without anything. So if we run npm start, okay, so npm run build first. So if we build it, yep, and then we start it. If we start, you'll see everything's already there. It was not thing. So, and if we turn off JavaScript and we reload it, you'll see it's the same thing. It's already there. Whereas when you're running a JavaScript application, is having to load the HTML, which usually is like a HTML tag with a body and a main with an ID. Then what happens is all of the React stuff gets added on top of it. I could also show you how it actually performs when you don't have much signal. So I'll show you. Where are we? So here, if we let's say we don't turn off JavaScript, but we have a network, and then we throttle it like very slow thing. This will still render at a reasonable speed, whereas if we now let me just turn that back to no throttling, and I'll disable cache as well. Let me just show you what happens. No throttling. So this is running the server-side rendered stuff, and it's not caching anything. Everything's getting reloaded, but it's getting reloaded, and you're seeing exactly what you would see if you had your JavaScript turned on, basically. So if we now do this, we stop and we open the other repo. So React, and we run npm start. So with this, you see here it's loaded up, but when we go to network application, disable the cache, and then run thing. We disable the cache and we run the thing on so okay, sorry, let me run it. So on fast, you see it's very quick, reloads. You see when it loads, it's changing some stuff in the page. So when it doesn't have JavaScript turned on, you see that in the page there should be nothing. So the root element here you see is empty, and this is where it's defined. Where are we? So this is where React gets attached. So you get the root element using JavaScript, and then you render everything inside of your root, so your app and everything like that. So here you see there's nothing here, and with the Next.js one, it was all there. So let's enable JavaScript again. That's not the problem. So let's disable the cache, so all the assets have to reload again, and we put on a slow 3G connection, and we try refresh. So what you'll notice here is it's blank. It's trying to load all of the things. So this bundle here, while it's loading, the user has no thing. So imagine you're on like a really slow 2G connection. While that's happening, all you'll see is a blank screen, whereas with the Next.js app, you see it straight away. So we'll do that again. Blank, like this is actually loading quite fast, but imagine it wasn't. Imagine it was stuck. Imagine it failed. Yeah, it's this thing. So we'll do it one more time, and then you can see what happens to the DOM. So you see the DOM is empty now. It will continue to stay empty until thing. So here, that's when the React inserts the code in. So if we turn off this and we go back to the Next.js app and we start that, you'll see the difference. So the same setting, disable cache, slow 3G. You see when it loads, it has everything already in there, and that's the difference between having a server-side rendered application and a a client-side rendered application. Obviously, both have their pros and cons, but this is a quick explanation or like walkthrough of what people mean when they say server-side rendered applications or client-side rendered application. And this was mainly for basically those people who or developers who are very anti-React because they just think that you can't use React, which is an amazing development experience, in your production environment because of all these accessibility issues or these progressive enhancement issues. And it's not the case. And in future videos, what we'll go through is how to build interactive elements, both progressively enhanced, so how GOVUK have done it with their search filters, but also at the same time using React and using front-end frameworks to actually do this piece of work, like making the development experience nice, but at the same time not compromising on any sort of accessibility needs or any sort of not being inclusive to users who have slow connection and so on. So I hope this was a good explanation of what it's like to use a server-side rendered framework versus a client-side rendered framework. And I hope this opens up more people into using front-end frameworks rather than just doing vanilla JS, which I guess in most places it's fine, but it's just you're not gonna get the right amount of like developers who want to work in vanilla JS for years and years without touching any sort of like nice React or Vue.js or like nice front-end frameworks. Thank you very much.